We interrupt your program to issue a severe warning for an impending emergency making its way to your area. We urge you to be watchmen of the times and to be prepared with the essential knowledge and supplies for the wake of the final hour.
Welcome to the Final Hour podcast, coming to you from the original Living Word Christian Center out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Jim Hammond.
Hey.
This is John Gapp.
How you doing?
This is Lonaiah Farrell. And this is Dee Schrader over here. He is our producer.
Yo.
And we are excited to be with you today. A lot of, how did you say hello in Russian, John?
Привет.
Yes, I didn't know that, but that would be good. Some good B-roll for later. But we want to talk about the Ukraine. We'd be crazy not to.
Yep.
This is we're doing this here on the 24th, and this will air next Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right. So this
March
will not be old news. Putin. Going into the Ukraine. It started this morning.
Yeah.
But I want to we want to get into this. There's so much to say about this, but I will say this. For you Christians out there, Ezekiel 38 is coming. The last country to align with Russia was Germany yesterday, because Germany gets their oil from the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is a whole subject.
Yeah.
They've got to align with Russia or they get no oil.
Right.
All these countries that are in Ezekiel 38 in the Bible, the war that goes on, we believe precludes or is in front of the tribulation, is very close, because we're going to get into what's going on in Israel. You guys got any comments about any of this?
Well, if you bring up Germany, I mean, that was a big contention about oil a couple of years ago, where Germany signed on to getting their oil from Russia. So this has kind of been a setup for a little bit of a while.
It is a setup, and I just think it's interesting on a side note that we want to go ahead and cancel our Keystone pipeline, which would have given us over 800,000 barrels of oil a day.
Yep.
Yet we are purchasing from Russia 500,000 barrels of oil a day out of the Nord Stream pipeline. Therefore, we're financing the Russian war on the Ukraine, you could say.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
But, I think the whole Ukraine thing is a feint, not as in faint, F-A-I-N-T, but feint, F-E-I-N-T.
Yeah.
It's a feint, as you throw in boxing, because you have to understand what's going on in the Middle East. There are 2 Russian bases located in Syria, have been there for some years. And, Putin just had language yesterday that says that he's starting in on Israel and the Golan Heights thing, the land they won in the 71 war against Syria.
Yep.
And he's saying that they're breaking international laws by the land they have in the Golan Heights. He's already starting in on this. And by the way, the Israelis just bombed Damascus this morning, and I don't even know if that's going to make the news. It might not. But Ukraine is just a side note. I mean, that's a bad deal. And I'm not saying people are dying. He's got 190,000 troops on that border. But how do you even support 190,000 troops sitting on the border, combat ready? You've got to feed them. You need fuel for all those trucks, for all those tanks, for all those airplanes, for all those helicopters. And they've had those troops on the border now for 6 weeks. Yet he's been able to finance those troops while they're moving. They're moving as of 4:00 this morning.
Right.
Into Ukrainian territory. So I don't know. I may have said everything that needs to be said on that.
Well, I mean, so let's break it down. I like that you're talking about Ukraine being a feint. I mean, I think it's probably a strategic hold, having some of those things in Ukraine, but I mean, there's so much in American politics or even world politics that we look at, and really the thing that's getting publicized is the distraction, right? I mean, so you think that Ukraine's more of a distraction than what's going on in Syria?
Absolutely, because you haven't heard anything. I mean, I'm sure the Israelis bombing Damascus. In a sense, what they're saying is they're bombing Russia.
Yeah.
Because Russia's got two bases that they've had since. Remember when Syria, when you had all those groups over there fighting, and you didn't know who was fighting who. It was when Obama was president. Turkey.
Yep.
And the Kurds, and that's when Russia moved into Syria. And as of a month ago, I tell you what, I knew this, that Russia was stepping up their air activity around in the Syrian airspace,
right,
giving cover to the Iranians who constantly ship in weapons to the Hezbollah terrorists that are on the Syrian border and in the Lebanese border with Israel. And that's where they shoot all those rockets in.
Yeah.
And in the past, Israel has bombed them, right? When they catch them with their with bringing in the weapons, they bomb them. But now that the Russians stepped up their movement in the airspace with their jets, with their MiGs, Israel didn't know what to do for a while. It looked like, as of this morning, Israel said, "We don't care what you're doing." They bombed Damascus, and there was a prophecy in our church many years ago that said that when you see the destruction of Damascus, that Ezekiel 38 is in play. And I'm really excited. I'm going to Israel on the 21st of March, and I want to witness it. I want to witness it.
Yeah.
I want to witness it because there's going to be. This is not a normal war.
No.
This is a war where a lot of things come down from heaven, and the U.S., by the way, the Bible calls it. The Bible calls this stuff. It's interesting that all the countries that are aligned with Russia right now are the countries that the Bible says goes into. It surrounds Israel, huge army, and the U.S. just sits back and says does nothing for this. So that's what's coming. We're telling you now. This is going to air on March 1. We're telling you Ezekiel 38 is coming, and you can call me on that. You can call me on that. By the way, we have a website. What if you want to get to us easily? What is our website? www.
TheFinalHourPodcast.com.
TheFinalHourPodcast.com. You can get to everything with that. I also want to say that we will be, when we get our, we have a creative, creative director. She's going to be up here because she's in a different state, and she's going to decorate all this behind us. We're probably going to get a wall that we can slide in and out of there, right? But it's going to look really good. It's going to look really good instead of a dusty plant. Yes. Build a wall?
Build a wall.
Okay. That's all Lonaiah said in 10 minutes. So
going back to what you're talking about. So in Ezekiel 38, I know that Russia is referred to as Gog.
Yes.
Gog.
Yes.
I don't know if we have to go super biblical, but I think it's interesting to watch this in action. If the real drive, the real point is for Russia to move on onto Israel or get involved with Israel, that if people read Ezekiel 38 when you throw it out there, understand that Russia is the Gog and Magog that it's referring to.
Yeah, and I've done teachings on this about 4 years ago, but. Those countries, if you do your research, the countries that are mentioned, it's going to be Iran, it's going to be Turkey, it's going to be Russia, it's going to be Germany. And I will say, by the way, I believe, and this is probably everyone else is paying attention, this does give China, because they are very aligned with Russia, I believe they're going to take a shot at Taiwan, and in the middle of all this, there was Chinese jets in Taiwanese airspace this morning. Of course, they're doing that right now. And so it is definitely ramping up. But I want to move to more to, if we can. Are you good with this? Are you good? All right.
Yeah, let's go.
You'll see. This is going to air March 6th, and I'm sure by the time it airs, you may see that they have there's going to be a buildup that starts around Israel,
Right?
And I'm just hoping that I'm not hoping for war, but it is inevitable,
Right?
The Bible prophesies it in Ezekiel 38. It's going to happen, and I'm hoping that if it's going to happen, because we know who the victor is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I'm going to be over there. Okay.
Yeah, you can get some good footage with your flip phone.
Get some good footage with my flip phone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe I'll maybe for that I'll get
You wanna
another
borrow
phone
a
just
phone?
for that.
Okay.
But
There's that Florida guy on TikTok that always has his flip phone. That always reminds me of Jim, because he records stuff on
Him
his
and
flip
Iron
phone.
Man.
It's
Yeah.
so funny.
Iron Man had a flip phone. He did.
Lonaiah can tell you about any superhero character because you've seen all the movies, right, Lonaiah?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. What's the latest one? What's the last one you saw, Lonaiah?
Spider-Man
Okay. Oh,
coming
okay.
home.
It was so good.
It was so
Yeah,
good.
I loved it.
Didn't see it. Anyways.
Well, there's a moment where the whole place erupts.
Yeah,
Because Spider-Mans
the
all
spider.
come together.
Okay.
Unite.
At this point, I'd rather talk about Portillo's, but we talked about that last week. Listen, I want to get to the U.S. side here with these peaceful protests and work into there from the trucker Convoy
Yep.
updates, because basically Canada, if you won't see this on regular news, but they are turning into a dictatorship because they are missing a First and Second Amendment, basically. And the Canadians will tell you that it's too bad they didn't have these things that we have, and that
Right.
we better protect them. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to John for that, because John's got a lot to say about this.
I do. I love my country. I love the United States. And growing up in a very patriotic household and patriotic state of South Dakota, I feel like it was ingrained in me early. But some of those things that the Declaration of Independence talks about is the freedom and the liberty to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I think those things are intrinsic importance of the American life and the American mindset. And it's becoming less so. But I think the things that were put into the Bill of Rights in the Constitution are so important. So number one, we're looking at a lot of things in American life that we're talking about the infringement of the First Amendment, which is, let me just read it. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. We've just watched the trucker convoy in Canada not have that ability to have that same redress of grievances, because the only thing that the government did in response to the convoy, to the seeking of peace, was to arrest people, freeze bank accounts, and tow trucks away
And take away their pets.
erase them
And their children.
They
Right.
took their pets. So I don't know if you guys saw this on. I'm trying to remember of the what. Do you know where it was talked about, Lonaiah?
For the pets?
Yeah.
I can find it for you.
And
Did we talk about this last week? The pets?
I don't think we did.
Yeah.
Listen,
We did.
these truckers, the news, they're making them out.
Right.
They're calling them racist,
rebel.
right?
What's that?
And this has nothing to do with racism. They are protesting the government mandating
Yeah.
a vaccine, and
Right.
they're not protesting the vaccine. 90% of them are vaccinated.
Right.
They're protesting a vaccine mandate, and because they don't have a First and Second Amendment,
Yep.
right? So Trudeau he's locked them down. He's frozen their bank accounts. He's taken their pets. He's taken their kids.
Yep.
The lady that was second in charge of the trucker convoy just was within 1 week sentenced to 10 years in jail.
Right.
And so no due process. No, you got anything to say about that?
Okay. So on the pets.
Yeah, it was on News Rebel.
Yeah.
Yes.
News Rebel.
So that's all out there, and I believe it was last night or early this morning that that Trudeau rescinded the emergency powers. Yeah,
which was martial law.
It was essentially martial law. It's funny that over the last 18 months that Canada and America have been kind of saying, hey, you don't need coins, you don't need paper, go ahead and go credit, go electronic money. What happens when you do have paper currency and coins when your electronic bank account is frozen? That becomes valuable, right?
Right.
Interesting point. But in that pursuit, so America, we're kind of at a crossroads of this free speech thing. Certain websites not allowing certain people to have free speech or have their opinion, have a voice in the conversation. So this is if the government is going to take that same stance of silencing dissent, that is an infringement of free speech, right? And I don't know how much we want to go into it, but I love free speech and I love America. I will always stand for the anthem, the national anthem at whatever it's played at. I put my hand on my heart. I sing as loud as I can. My father would be proud.
Do you have a good voice when you sing?
Oh, it's amazing.
Okay.
It's so good.
All right.
No.
I've heard it. No, it's good.
But when this started up, 7-8 years ago with Colin Kaepernick, I had a conversation with my dad because he was kind of pissed about it. He and a lot of Americans people have died for defense and they have given their lives to defend America. And the symbol of America is the flag. And people put a lot of importance on it, and I completely agree. However, Colin Kaepernick, in his kneeling during the national anthem, sometimes he sat down, sometimes he kneeled, and there's a lot of drama after that. But that one defiance, that is the essence of peaceful protest. The peaceful protest was, I think that people of color are not being treated fairly by the police. I back the police. I love the police. I love our law enforcement. I'm so appreciative for them. But there are times where there is unfair treatment, and I think that was about as Colin Kaepernick being an NFL star, having some position, having some celebrity. That is a peaceful way to protest what is going on in the country. And, I think that opens up that conversation because we need to be serious about free speech and being able to protest. And if we can't understand the other side when they protest, then I think things like May of 2020 and the rest of the summer come into play because, we say the way that you're protesting, we don't like that.
But in the summer of May of 2020,
right,
there was news stations that said peaceful protest.
Oh,
when
yeah.
You had buildings burning down behind
and
you.
that was a lie. Right. I'm saying if
CNN was on saying, it's a peaceful protest, and Minneapolis was burning.
Absolutely.
Right.
I completely agree. I mean, that was a scary time. And that wasn't the way to protest. That's not peaceful protest. That is the destruction of personal property.
Okay, but then you have the Canadian Convoy peacefully protesting.
Right.
Can I say something about Minneapolis? Because I don't want to start anything.
Yeah.
You had the Floyd and Wright families
Yep.
on TV begging for peaceful protest.
Absolutely.
And I think, I know people that were down there protesting, but you know, what made it violent were the extremist groups, and everybody here knows that and knows who it was that came in here, and there were a lot of peaceful protests, but the extremist groups took advantage of the situation. But, you know, looking at Colin Kaepernick, which is old news.
Totally old news.
And it was a peaceful protest. And, you know, and I know a lot of people were offended. And I personally put my hand over my heart whenever the anthem is playing.
Me too.
But he was not protesting the flag, and then went to military people that were ex-military and asked them, how can I do this effectively? And they said, take a knee.
Take a knee.
And actually, in hindsight, that is, you know, he was ahead of it, because if you look at what happened with Floyd, and then the things that went on after that, he was 2 years ahead of it. And you had some thoughts on this, Lonaiah? I don't think, and I'm not saying I agree with Kaepernick.
No,
I'm just saying
I don't at all.
I don't care, right? Because when the anthem plays for me, I'm gonna have my hand on my heart, right?
Me too.
And I can just agree to disagree with them. And it's not going to get violent. That's what we're talking about, is peaceful protest, like the truckers in Canada. Okay.
Right, but the truckers in Canada were called terrorists, white supremacists. They were labeled differently. So I'm just saying, we have the news who's labeling things and putting restrictions or ideas into people's heads that maybe aren't following it closely, because you had Canadians who weren't in the area of Ottawa. They were farther out. And they were hearing the news. I guess, discuss these topics, and they really thought it was terrorists. I mean, you had truck drivers sitting in their trucks, and you had police breaking their windows open, and they're like, here, take me. Even the Tamara Litch lady, who was one of the top organizers of it, and Chris Barber, who was the head of it, they both went to the police and were like, hey, we know you're looking for us. Arrest me. And she's like, my coat's wet, be careful. Like, they were very...
And she got 10 years in prison immediately.
With no bail.
So what I want to say is, absolutely, Lonaiah, that is what I believe the truckers did. They cleaned up the areas that they were in. They didn't leave trash everywhere. They were respectful. That is protest. It is not violence. And I think that is an important thing, as Americans are going to start being more and more confronted with the need to protest, the need to have redress with the government and say, what you're doing is wrong. We need to change course. And we can't wait for the next election.
No, because you have it happening right now. They started in California, and they're making their way to D.C. And then you have 700 or 70,000. I can't remember which number it is, but like Army Reserve going to the Capitol to help with whatever is going to happen. With these truck drivers, who, this is the backbone of America. If you look at it, this is your blue collar families who are pretty much the basis of America. Just saying, we believe in freedom. So we believe in free choice in what you do.
Absolutely.
That's all that. Okay, we know that they were protesting in Canada vaccine mandates. Okay, they weren't against the vaccine.
And government restrictions. Like in Canada, if you were unvaccinated, you couldn't even go to the grocery store without a health official coming with you and walking around the store with you.
For Americans, that is
Can you
insane
imagine if
to
I went
think
to
about,
the grocery store and I had somebody with me the whole time? I'd be like,
my goodness.
And that's what they were doing in Canada, and CNN's not going to tell you that.
Okay.
For the last
24 months. That, to me, that is so insane.
We went from like, what was it, like a 15-day slow the spread to like we're day 710 into it.
So what are they protesting in the U.S.? There's a new trucker convoy starting in the U.S., and I'm interested to see how our government reacts.
Well, and it's interesting to watch it, because you had President Biden speak to Justin Trudeau saying, don't give up, don't let up on these people, like keep your line. So it will be interesting to see what happens, but they're just supporting in solidarity with the truckers, because we get goods from Canada. Canada gets goods from us. They're just saying, like, we're just supporting each other. So that's all we're doing here is, hey, back off the mandates, because you have people...
Quit messing with everyday life that is not the government's responsibility. That's not the government's place.
But I did read last night that New York City Mayor Eric Adams is not requiring the vaccine mandate to happen in New York. So he's saying, hey, we're not going to require that anymore.
Good.
So it's starting.
Yeah.
So they're already kind of starting.
Yep.
To be like, hey, we'll pull back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think the more that the everyday American can put pressure on the government and say this isn't right. I mean, that's more peaceful resistance and peaceful protesting. And I think that's what Americans have to do. But the difference between Canada and Australia and many other countries and America is America has something to back up that right to free speech. And that is the right to bear arms, to not be trampled by America. And I hope that we can find a way to peacefully change what is going on in America.
Right.
And we're not trying to incite anything.
No,
but that Second Amendment was a big deal.
Yeah.
And when they put it in, and that, and the citizens of Canada, go online, you can see our mistake is we didn't have anything like that. So this guy, moving on to Trudeau, is basically a complete dictator. He's called martial law. How could you ever see even that happening? Trudeau, God, where do we start with him? I just watched an interview. It was a very public interview where he was doing with the Canadian press, or maybe it was international press, where his favorite country was China, right?
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know this, Trudeau's mother was very close, a very close friend to Fidel Castro. And Fidel Castro actually spent a lot of time with Justin Trudeau.
Yes.
Okay, Justin Trudeau is one of the major players in the World Economic Forum. Hint, hint. Do you have more to say about Justin Trudeau, or either of you guys? I'm just kind of laying down the basics here.
Number one, obviously, to praise a non-freedom loving country like China. I think it is not in the best interest of a freedom-loving country like supposedly Canada, but definitely not the United States.
No.
And I think there's so many stars, there's so many celebrities that are kowtowing to China politics.
Right, and this should tell us something. 65% of the Democrats in Congress supported Trudeau and what he did in Canada with the truckers. Like, this is documented.
Scary.
Very scary.
Scary because, we talked about this last week, but there's a law on the Department of Homeland Security website. Right. And it's using that language about if they feel like you are using inciting language, they can call you a terrorist, right? And he called those truckers as that was an incitation. They were using inciting language when they were just sitting in their trucks. The protest was nothing to do with racism. It was about having to go to the grocery store if you were unvaccinated and be followed around by a health official. It was from having the country locked down by 10 o'clock at night for 2 years. It was about not having to been able to have church for over a period of 2 years. Right. Those are just a few of the restrictions. And then he calls basically martial law.
Right.
Martial law. Which
without a conversation.
Yes, without a conversation.
Right. But my point about the verbiage that they use is you just had NBC on Tuesday. Parents are starting to call anybody who opposes a mask a paper terrorist.
Right.
So you have the Department of Homeland Security warning you about terrorists and that they can go after people. And now you have words being thrown at somebody who opposes a mask, a paper terrorist. Slipping
the language in wherever slowly, they can to start phrasing anyone that disagrees with you as a terrorist.
That what the law says on the website, and I don't know how this is going to stand when somebody gets arrested for this and then goes to court because
you can't.
Because what it says is we can call you a terrorist for using inciting language.
Right.
Okay.
But how do you define inciting language? Is that being
It's whatever the government chooses
right.
is. That's
Inciting.
what they say.
Yeah.
Mis, mal, or disinformation,
Right.
opposed to the government's
right. So if the
process,
the government says it's mal citing or mal, what is it? Malinformation.
Mal, mis, or disinformation.
No thanks.
Mal, mis, or disinformation. If that's what you're giving out, if that's what they think you're giving out. I.e. Joe Rogan, and you know, I'm not saying I love Joe Rogan. I'm just saying, look what happened to Joe Rogan.
Right.
One of the biggest podcaster in the world. They didn't like what he was saying, so that's why they put the line. Because millions of people a day listen to what he's saying, and he was asking questions that they did not like. I'm not saying that I support, or I'm just saying this is where that law came from.
Right.
But isn't conversation good from both sides?
Well, if you want the truth.
Yeah, I have plenty of conversations with people with opposing views. If you're open-minded and you listen to it,
absolutely,
you can there's good things to say.
You should have
sides.
a strong enough mind to understand and separate those views and decide what you believe and what you don't.
Right. It's conversation.
Right.
And so this podcast, there's just a lot to talk about, and we may have been a little all over the place, but we're looking forward to coming back to you. We'll be back every week for a half hour. What was that? What on the? Can we give them the website one more time?
www.thefinalhourpodcast.com.
And you can
2 or 3 W's.
World Wide Web.
And you can get to our social media accounts. Yep. You know, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram.
Yep.
YouTube. We want to connect with you.
Yeah.
All right. Apple Podcast, Spotify. Am I saying all this correctly? Because I have a flip phone.
You definitely are.
I have a flip phone and an antenna TV at home, so it's hard for me to get the news.
So, what's our Instagram account? Is it at The Final Hour?
Yes, it is.
I think it's
The Final Hour.
Isn't it The Final Hour Podcast?
The Final Hour Podcast, yes.
Okay.
You can't just say The Final Hour.
That's what I'm asking.
It is The Final Hour Podcast.
Thank you, D.
The Final
Schrader.
Hour Podcast.
D. Schrader.
That is why I'm the producer.
All right, at that we are signing off. Signing off. Love you.